hope you're ready. I have a great story for you tonight. This is the story of the Star Brothers. Aris and Leo were twin brothers born among the stars. Though born in the same split second, Aris always felt protective of his brother. Leo could be a bit of a hothead, and Aris was kept busy keeping him out of trouble. They were the most rare and beautiful thing, new lives in a race of immortal beings called the Celestials. The boys were always together. They were as close as two brothers could be. They knew each other's minds. They trusted each other with every truth and every question. When Aris grabbed the comet's tail with both hands, Leo knew to stand in front of it and play the comet's head like a friendly dog. When the boys were old enough, they were brought before the Council of Elders. The time had come for them to receive the greatest gift of their lifetimes. You see, I know you look up at the stars. I know we all marvel at their beauty and their mystery. But the stars look down at us too. They treasure us. The chance to live a human life, to be born here and live here and experience our world, is the most precious rite of passage. And for Aris and Leo, the moment had arrived. They were led slowly into the abyss of the council, right up to the throne of the Elder. "It is time, my sons," he intoned. "It is time for you to be born again. You will come to me separately and chart your course through your human life. You will decide the things you will see and things you will experience. And when you leave my chamber, you will forget what we have said. When you are born on Earth, you will forget your life here, and you will be fully and only human." Leo looked from the Elder to his brother and bit his lip. "Sir," he began, "when we get there, when we are born, will I know my brother?" The Elder smiled kindly. "Yes, Leo, you will know him as your brother. But the closeness you feel here will not necessarily go with you. If you choose to have that closeness as humans, it will be up to you when you are old enough to create it in your lifetime." Aris smiled and slipped his hand into Leo's. "Don't worry, Leo," he whispered. "We'll remember each other, I promise." Each boy went with the Elder and planned his life as a human. And when they were reunited in the abyss, they smiled at each other with the impish excitement of what they were about to do. It was the greatest adventure either one of them could have imagined, and they would get to do it together. "Are you ready?" asked the Elder. The boys caught each other's eyes and smiled. "Yes, sir," they said together. "Then take a deep breath and close your eyes. When you open your eyes, your journey will have begun." And so, Aris and Leo were born as brothers here among us. Kinda like that. They chose to be born in a small town outside the city, where it was dark enough that they could still see the stars. I wish I could tell you that they immediately remembered their love and their closeness, but it took them a while. While they were always together, they fought constantly. They questioned why they had been born as brothers. They were so unfamiliar to each other. It felt like whatever one did perfectly irritated the other. The boys were 8 when they started racing each other through the woods. One day, as they were running, chasing each other and pushing each other to go faster and further, Leo realized that he had taken a wrong turn. The trees looked unfamiliar, and the air started to smell strangely open and deep. But Aris was hot on his heels, and he couldn't stop. He couldn't be caught, pushing himself forward, blinded by the competition. He didn't notice when the dirt underfoot turned to rock, and when the rock began to thin into a great, high cliff. He pulled himself up short in a panic, but it wasn't quite fast enough, and his momentum carried him bodily over the edge. Time slowed as Leo fell, and he realized in a flash that he was about to die. And that's when he felt a small electric hand grip his wrist. Aris pulled them both out of the air, hurling his little body backwards and tumbling both of them onto the rocky path behind the sheer face. Leo felt a small rock slice into his hand, felt the blood pouring out over his arm and Aris. But he was alive. Gulping air, he turned to look back at his brother, and they caught each other's eye. For the first time in their young lives, there was a recognition. What it was, neither of them could have said, but they knew each other then. On the cliffside, sheened in sweat and blood, they became brothers. The years that followed saw them growing ever closer, taking each adventure in stride and together. They were 22 when they decided to learn how to fly. They went up together in small planes, learning to take off, to land, and then to do flips and loop-de-loops. They would laugh as their plane cavorted through the sky and smiled contentedly as the wheels touched back down to earth. The day the plane went down was a flight like any other. Nothing had gone wrong. There was no great conflagration. But the plane began to fall from the sky. Leo couldn't get the engine to start again, and the landing gear wouldn't respond to Aris smashing the buttons. The plane crashed through trees and grass and came to rest on a green hillside under a cloudless sky. Leo freed himself and tumbled out onto the grass. He dragged his body up the side of the plane to find Aris, unconscious in another seat. Aris, wake up, get up. Aris, get out of the plane. Aris lay still. Aris! Leo breathed, his heart rate slowing. Aris, open your eyes. And still, Aris did not move. Time slowed again. The realization that Aris would not move came slowly. Like a great wave crashing over him, Leo felt the light go out of the sun. Leo brushed the scar on his palm left by the rock at the cliff face. Maybe Aris would feel the old wound and wake. Aris, don't leave me, brother. But Aris was already gone. How you doing, buddy? Need a break? It was many years later, and Leo still moved in the cloudless fog of that morning. Colors seemed bright and hollow. People spoke to him as though from a long way off, and he jealously guarded his isolation from the world. He still saw his brother everywhere, the way a certain branch swayed as though it had been brushed by a young hand. The way that girl smiled at him, the same mischievous glint in her eye that Aris used to have. It was that girl who began to bring him back to life. She had lost her dog in the park. Frantically, she ran back and forth calling him. Comet! Comet, come back! Leo raised his head from the scar on his palm at her voice, his back against a tree. And then there was Comet, streaking across the grass with his tongue lolling happily. He beelined for Leo's tree. Before he knew it, Leo was on his feet, jumping in front of Comet and playing his head with a laugh and a smile. The girl arrived breathless and grabbed Comet's tail with both hands. You silly goose, where were you going? She laughed. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. I'm Celine, by the way. Oh, hi. Hi, Celine. Nice to meet you. I'm Leo. Celine smiled. Hi, Leo. And somewhere in his chest, Leo felt something warm break open. A tiny dam on a great river, and his blood began to move again. Celine and Leo were together from that day. Their love brought them a family And then more family, and more adventures than they could have remembered. They grew old together. They grew wiser. They held each other when Comet died. They cried together when the fire took their house. They smiled when the sun built them a new one. And when Leo died, he died with a smile on his face. Celine was standing next to him, and his finger now unconsciously and methodically stroked the scar on his palm. In that scar was his holding on to Aris. Not with sadness now, but with fondness. Great love. Leo's last breath was a gentle exhale up into a cloudless sky. And when he opened his eyes again, he was home. He was in that sky, up among the stars, young and immortal, and standing before the Elder, with his hand clasped in his brother's warm grip.
Aris, is it really? It's you! I remember you! I remember this!
Aris laughed out loud and began to jump around excitedly.
Oh, Leo! I've been waiting for you. I watched everything. I watched it all. What an adventure you have had!
You were there? Leo asked, confused. But no, I remember you weren't there. I know you weren't because I missed you.
But I was. I was in your scar. I was in the park that day you met Celine. I sent Comet to you. Don't you see? I was always there, and I wouldn't have missed it. I'm so proud of you.
As the Elder looked on smiling, Leo began to cry. The well of love for his brother broke open with gratitude that he was here now. The boys held each other, crying and laughing, and patting each other on the back to make sure the other was real. Leo pulled away from Aris and looked at him squarely. I am so grateful that you saw my life, Aris. But I don't understand. You could have been there with me. We could have done it all together. Why did you leave me, brother? Aris grinned. I never left you. My journey was to die, Leo. Yours was to live. Yeah, that sticks with me, that one. Good night, buddy.